car is in neutral. It's in neutral. And I can't even turn that wheel, not even a smidge. This caliper is done. And we're going to talk about why we need to do calipers in pairs, hydraulic stuff, and rotors and pads. What happens if you just try to do one side by itself? You saw it and you could hear it too. You have several problems with this car. This car has got a lot of issues. ABS lights on, traction lights on. Once you get driving, we weren't even 3 minutes into this ride, and I was completely going to be unaware that we had a caliper issue because we haven't driven this car yet. But I knew we had brake issues because of the ABS light and the way the pedal felt, and when you did go a little distance, you had a growl noise on the other side. You have grinding noise on the other side. And I wasn't even driving for 3 minutes, and I felt a slight pull without even applying the brakes. It wanted to go left. So now that you have all three symptoms in front of you, we have squeaking, grinding, and pulling. We have all three of them, all the symptoms in front of you. Now we're going to break it down for you. First one, we have squeaking. Squeaking sound is usually caused by the tin plates that mount on the caliper bracket and the pad sits in them. There also is the indicator. Right in here, you'll see the indicator. If that pad's worn down too far, that indicator's doing its job, and it's just going to hit that rotor and go beep, beep, beep. That gives you about 230 seconds to 130 seconds thickness of that pad to get ready to do a brake job. That's pretty simple. It's there for a reason, but sometimes you get confused when you hear this sound, you think it's that sound. Unfortunately, sometimes you get a brand new brake job, if you didn't do it, or maybe you did do it, and you hear that sound right after, and you're like, oh man, I know I have new brakes, what did I do? These have a tendency to slide around. They might push too much on the rotor rides right in here. It's where the rotor rides. If this isn't seated properly in that bracket, if it's not seated right, it might hit too much on that rotor, and you're gonna hear metal sound. Easy fix, take it apart, look at it again. Sometimes we rush at what we do. You can do that in everything you do, right? Don't forget, 1aauto.com for all the parts you see here. We love our brakes. Now, we're gonna go into grinding sound. Well, this is pretty common. This is a brake pad, and the pad is missing. It's gone. This is the metal backing. You can see the actual ring of where the caliper sits. That's right here, the piston. We got it right here too. That's the seat that that piston sits in. The hydraulic fluid pushes. Usually there's a pad there, and that's gonna push against that rotor and stop your car. A lot of times what happens as pads get old, you might not drive it a lot if a car sits a lot, unfortunately. Right here is where the pad is bonded, so it adheres to this metal backing, and over time, if it sits a lot, actually it comes unglued. That glue breaks down from the weather, and it just kind of, it'll start to break the pad. You'll see, sometimes you'll see pads separate just like that. And when that happens, you gotta replace them. I don't care if the pad's that thick. That means that that bonding is gonna come off. You go down the road, you don't even know it fell off, and then you apply your brakes and you hear this grinding sound. Boy, is it loud. And you could hear it there on that screen that we had. And that's what happened. Or we'll go to the third problem, and that's pulling. That's always 90% of the time going to have to do with hydraulics. It's either that or the pads aren't seated correctly in this bracket. That could cause a little bit of a drift or pull, unwear pads. It's going to be severe. But 90% of the time, we're going to find it to be hydraulic. And here we have hydraulic calipers. This is a flex hose. This is where the brake fluid flies down and goes down into the caliper piston, pushes out under pressure. The average car is around 3,000 PSI per caliper. And this is a flex hose. And we have situations where we apply brakes and boy, does that steering wheel just pull to the other side. Well, we got two problems there. If it is pulling when you're not applying the brakes, then that's the side the caliper or the flex hose has a problem on. If you apply the brakes and it pulls to the right, then your problem's going to be on the left. That means that the right side's doing its job. It's grabbing that brakes, it's trying to stop the car, and this wheel is freewheeling it. It's not even grabbing at all. So the pull's naturally going to go to the side that's working. So let me say it again. Driving down the road, apply the brakes, pulls, it's the other side caliper that's bad. Going down the road, not applying the brakes, and the car pulls. And it kind of like if you put it in neutral, doesn't want to roll anymore. You have a caliper issue. And that side it's pulling to is the side it's on. That's without applying the brakes. Let's break it down and why you need to do these in pairs. You're boiling that brake fluid. The fluid is boiling like there's no tomorrow. And what happens is it breaks down. Moisture gets in there from the air. That's why they do regular routines now. They push us to do maintenance at every 50, 80K to do a brake flush. back in my day, we never did brake fluid. We're like, what's the big deal? I've seen brake fluid look like mud and wave to the customer goodbye. I didn't know any better. And plus back then it wasn't, your cars were only going 50. I'm not even joking. 60 was fast. Like we were like, wow, you're going 60. But we also had very heavy cars. They weren't lightweight. They weren't fuel economy. They were big boats, rear wheel drive. You didn't have an issue like you do nowadays. More cars on the road, faster cars. Cars heat up faster. Aluminum cools it down faster, but steel, you know, it's just a whole different world. So please adapt to what's going on. And flex hoses, old days they would bubble on the outside and you go, oh, I got to replace that. Nowadays, they hardly bubble on the outside, and that's due to the way they make them. There's a heavy, heavy rubber plus threading in there. This is like, sometimes it's copper threading, it's wire threading, and then there's another damper in there of a little rubber hose. And what happens is that hose inside will get a little nick in it somehow, and it fills up with brake fluid, and it blows up. So that little passageway is all your brake fluid's going through, and when that passage inside that rubber blows up, say it gets a cut in it, fills up with brake fluid, this goes down and down and down in size. And now you have restricted flow. This caliper is not working. It's not doing its job because of the flex hose. So some people will go, oh, it's a flex hose. And they do a whole thing to diagnose that. We won't get into that now. But don't do one side. Do them as a pair. They're like headlights, okay? They go by hours too, and wear and tear. If both flex hoses are the same age, and you're going to do a front brake job, you're not going to do one rotor, you're going to do two rotors. You're not going to do one side pad, you're going to do two side pad. The same with hydraulic. This caliper is the same age on this side it is on that side. And if it's not, and you've done one side, then you're just chasing it, just constantly chasing those. Do everything as a pair. It's a mind ease, sets it done. Do flex hoses together. You should be going down the road smoother, faster, and not always working on your car. Not that that's a bad thing, we all love doing that. But it's one thing to say, hey, I'm having fun, or hey, I got only an hour left to do this, I gotta get to work. There's a lot going on. Spend the time and do it right, that's what I'm saying. Don't forget to get your parts at 1aauto.com. Thanks for watching, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And don't forget to ring that bell when you do, because then you'll never miss one of our future videos. Thanks for watching. That is on it. Wow, these brakes are good. No problems here. No pulling, no noise. What do I say now?